You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Sure what day or time it is, and not recording this on the normal microphone that I record the old podcast on, and really don't know much of anything that's going on because my jet-lagged brain won't process any of it. But hello. Hi, everyone. Hello, Sam.
Who are you?
Who is this?
Who is this? Who am I? Who are you?
What's happening? Hey, welcome into this week's edition of the show before the show from MILB.com. My name is Tyler Mon. Sam Dykstra is in New York City. I am in Busan, South Korea, and we record a intercontinental,
there you
not
go.
transcontinental,
intercontinental
global podcast, which we seem to end up doing a couple times every year. And here's our first one for 2019. So hello.
Hello, Tyler. You should say like what you are there for. You are calling baseball games. You're talking to us. It's 10:16 my time in the morning. It is 11:16 p.m. on your time.
It is.
You have done a lot of talking about baseball today. You saw some incredible games. What was it? Netherlands, Korea, and then Chinese Taipei and Panama, right?
Yes. Two good ones today. Chinese Taipei knocked off Panama 4-1 in my early game, and Korea outlasted the Netherlands 5-4 in extra innings in the late game. USA Baseball, for those who would be very interested in that result, they opened up today with an 11-0 win over South Africa in their opener. There was actually almost a monumental upset. The lowest ranked team in the tournament is Spain, and Spain is a team that's kind of comprised of expats, guys from Venezuela or Dominican Republic and Cuba, and as well as some actual natives of the inside the borders of Spain, and they very nearly knocked off world number one Japan. They were up 2-0 on Japan with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th, and Japan rallied with 2 outs and got 4 runs there and ended up hanging on to win 4-0 or 4-2. An entertaining first day for the U18 Baseball World Cup, and we got 4 more days to go in group play, the opening round, and then we go to the second round, and then from there we'll determine the bronze medal game and the World Championship game participants. But should be fun. This USA baseball team 2 years ago had out of a 20-man roster, I believe 10 guys were drafted in the first round the next year, including guys like Nolan Gorman with the St. Louis Cardinals organization now, and Matthew Liberatore with the Tampa Bay Rays, and Ryan Weathers with the San Diego Padres, and Tristan Casas with the Boston Red Sox, and all these dudes. So these are kind of the future stars of the game that we get to watch every couple of years with the U18 World Cup. And so, we're having some fun,
Yeah, and not just that. There were some guys there. I know on that Panama team, there were 6 guys who were already signed.
Yeah, already professionally signed guys. Panama had, I think, 3 Giants prospects and a Pirates prospect and a Dodgers prospect and a White Sox prospect. And the Netherlands team today had a handful of guys who have already been signed. There are a ton of scouts this morning at the Chinese Taipei Panama game, mostly to watch a couple of Chinese Taipei players, a second baseman and a starting pitcher. From that side. So, it's kind of interesting, the wide array of guys who are either already signed or will be signed pretty soon. And it's pretty neat. We a few seasons ago got to see a handful of players who came out very closely after that tournament was over and signed professional contracts, whether in the United States or overseas. Maybe the most notable one was Ji-hwan Bae, who was signed by the Atlanta Braves right after that tournament. That contract was later voided when the Braves had all the penalties levied for how they had kind of brazenly conducted themselves on the international market, the amateur market. So Bae had his contract voided. He's now in the Pittsburgh Pirates system. But there are tons of guys from that 2017 tournament that are playing in Nippon Professional Baseball already, Japan's Major League, the Korea Baseball Organization, Korea's Major League, Chinese Professional Baseball League, which is the professional league in Taiwan. So it's pretty cool. It's some pretty cool stuff to see, and yeah, we've already got some pro talent on the field in this one.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to watch last night. I got a little bit of the Panama Chinese Taipei game. So yeah, just seeing guys. I know you mentioned the pitcher and the catcher, and you mentioned this on the broadcast too. But the pitcher was a Giants prospect. He was throwing to a Giants prospect who was wearing his Giants helmet.
Wearing his Giants helmet.
Yeah. So if anybody's up during any of these times, Tyler's always tweeting out when games are going on. They're streaming on YouTube. Super easy to find, and it's super accessible. So when you're not watching Mill TV, and we'll get into that later about the playoffs coming up and whatever, this is really pure baseball and guys representing their country and representing the name on the front of their shirt. And you can say you saw these guys before they even hit the minors, never mind the majors.
Pretty cool stuff. And with that, we welcome you into this week's episode of The Show Before the Show from MILB.com. Thanks for tuning in wherever you found us. We're at MILB.com/podcast, and we are, of course, on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and Spotify and everywhere else you can find your shows. And you can give us a rating and a review and a subscription and get in touch with the show. This is the final podcast of the minor league regular season in 2019, which is pretty crazy. It is nearly Labor Day weekend back home in the U.S. and minor league postseason starting up all over the place, and we'll be talking about that here coming up in just a few minutes. But very unfortunately, obviously, we're starting with some tremendously and kind of indescribably heartbreaking news from minor league baseball this week, in which, of course, on Tuesday, the wife, son, and mother-in-law of Tampa Bay Rays pitching prospect Blake Bivens all killed in a triple homicide in the state of Virginia. And Blake, a member of the AA Montgomery Biscuits this season, we saw on Wednesday, or on Tuesday, I should say, that the Biscuits had canceled their doubleheader for that night, and then this news slowly started to come out. And I mean, we've never really had to cover or talk about anything quite like this before, and I, to be frank, don't know how to put into words the heartbreak that I think all of us in the baseball community feel over this. But I really have no brain to be able to process something like this, and the grief that somebody like Blake must be going through right now is incomprehensible to me.
Yeah, I mean, this starts as a human story, never mind a baseball story. I mean, that's what brings it into our orbit. But at the end of the day, 3 people, including a very young child, a loving mother, and by all accounts, loving mother-in-law, and mother herself, and all that are gone. And it was really hard to stomach this. And Blake Bivens put out an Instagram post, I think on Thursday, trying to talk his way through it, and the strength that came through in that, and how anybody can put anything into words about this is, impossible, really. And he had a lot of pictures of his wife Emily, and of his son and of his mother-in-law, and I'll read a little bit of it just because I want people to hear Blake Bivens' words. It starts with, 2 days ago, my heart was turned to ash. My life as I knew it is destroyed. The pain my family and I feel is unbearable and cannot be put into words. I shake and tremble at the thought of our future without them. But what it goes on to from there is the loving memories he has of Emily, and the love he feels for his son, who's no longer here, and the love he had for his mother-in-law. And it ends with, thank you, God, for giving me the most wonderful family in the world. I've been blessed beyond belief. Thank you to all my family and friends who have reached out to me during this time of sorrow. Thank you, Rays and Biscuits, for your support through everything. I am comforted by all the messages and well wishes. I'm not sure what is next for me, but I do know God has a plan, even though I can't see it. I think Blake Bivens is going to need all the support he can get, just because this is so unfathomable. And it seems like the Rays are giving him as much support as they can. Montgomery was there. Morgan Ensberg, there was a story that came out that Morgan Ensberg went back with him to Virginia to make sure he got safe. Morgan Ensberg is the manager of the Montgomery Biscuits. Again, you wonder about, can Blake Bivens ever come back to baseball? You hope so. But that's the farthest thing from his mind right now. It's the farthest thing from anybody in the Bivens or Bernard family minds. We just hope he gets all the love and support he needs, and the space he needs, and the ability to resume life again, because this is really difficult. And our thoughts are with everybody in the Bivens and Bernard families. All you can do at a time like this is be there for support. And I know there's a page set up to help monetarily with the Bivens family to maybe cover funeral costs and cover everything else that's going to come out of this. But our thoughts are certainly here with everybody here at MILB.com, and I think everybody in minor league baseball and the baseball community at large is with Blake Bivens this week and going forward. This is not just a 1 week story. It's not a 1 day story. It's going to carry forward, and we all wish nothing but the best for him going forward after something like this.
Well said. And with that, we pivot to talk about the thing that we love and that we know Blake Bivens loves, and that's baseball. And the postseason is coming up, and Blake and that Montgomery team that is well acquainted with the postseason chase, and all across the minor leagues, of course, starting next week. Playoffs will begin from AAA on down. And Sam, just give us kind of a preview of the postseason picture as it is shaped up in these final few days.
Yeah, so one thing I do want to point out is that the Biscuits have made the postseason for the first time in their 16-year history, which is really incredible. And they're going to be playing with really heavy hearts. I know the stadium in Montgomery, they set up a thing behind home plate that says Biv, just kind of in thoughts with Blake Bivens. And if you need a team to root for in the playoffs, I think the Montgomery Biscuits is a great place to start. But kind of expanding outside of that, some of the races that I'm going to be watching particularly are one starting in the Texas League. Arkansas and Amarillo have already clinched their spots there. Arkansas, we've talked about a bunch this year. Really exciting team. They brought up talent like Jared Kelenic, or Jared Kelenic. Kyle Lewis is already there. Justin Dunn is already there. Justice Sheffield got moved up to the majors, but Evan White is still there. Logan Gilbert has been shoving for them the last couple of weeks. That Arkansas team is just going to be crazy. Moving higher up there, the International League, a lot is still unsettled by that. So before we even get to the postseason, this last weekend is going to kind of be fun to watch. There's a wild card chase right now between Charlotte, Durham, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and Syracuse. Charlotte's obviously a fascinating team with Nick Madrigal and Luis Robert. We would like to see more of them to play. We'll get into this later. Don't think either one is going to be a September call-up. But Durham going for a three-peat in that IL, trying to chase down Charlotte in that wild card race. Really interesting to watch there. Columbus has already clinched. Gwinnett is on the verge of clinching. So those are some of the other teams to watch out for. Moving much further down, one I think people should kind of keep an eye on right now. In the New York Penn League, we talked about them, I think, last week when we were previewing playoff races. As of today, the Brooklyn Cyclones are 1 game behind Hudson Valley and Aberdeen in that McNamara division. But the Brooklyn Cyclones actually brought up Matthew Allen, their third-round pick from this year, and Brett Beatty, their first-round pick from this year, kind of in hopes that if they do make the playoffs, they have those guys there and ready. Both have played in the GCL. Beatty also played in Kingsport. The GCL and the Florida State League, we haven't mentioned this yet, have their postseasons canceled because of the hurricane coming in and worries about getting players out and travel and all that sorts of stuff. So because of that, you're going to maybe see some more movement. Maybe Wander Franco joins Montgomery now that Charlotte is no longer playing in the FSL. But we'll get to that when that happens. There's no word on that yet. But it may have an effect on that New York Penn League race. And if Brooklyn makes the playoffs there in the New York Penn League, that team could be fascinating. I want to also add that they are tied atop the wild card standings right now with Aberdeen. So even if they don't win the division, they still have a very good chance of making the playoffs. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that Brooklyn team if you're a Mets fan for sure. One other team I want to shout out real quick is Delmarva, who has had a extremely strong year front to finish. They've actually had 3 straight hitless starts by their pitching staff. I got to see them a little bit on Tuesday. I went to cover a story about Adley Rutschman. The top overall pick is with Delmarva. He's going to be with them throughout the playoffs. You're going to want to see him anyways. But seeing him guide that staff, who is headed by Grayson Rodriguez, the number 2 prospect in the Orioles system, who threw 6 no-hit innings on Thursday. That Delmarva team has as good a chance as anybody, I think, to win their league. Can they keep that going? Can they keep this going strong? Rutschman seems to be turning things around with the bat. I saw him homer on Tuesday. The bat's never going to be a worry, but he is coming off a long college season, obviously, and playing now deep into August and September. How can he keep that up? So lots of things to follow pretty much in every league. No matter where you're going to go, you're not going to miss something. And just know that, yes, this extends the season for a lot of these guys, but these guys care. Even when we're talking to guys in May and June, and when they're wrapping up the first half division titles, they always say, hey, this is to get the ring at the end of the season, whether they're there or whether they're getting the ring for the next guy who will be there. So playoffs seems like they're extending the season sometimes in the minor leagues, but know that the guys who are playing them do care about those games and are trying to get rings to begin their minor league careers and something they can hopefully carry and reproduce at the major league level.
Strike 2 this week as we move along in 3 strikes. The minor league postseason race obviously coming to a boil. Major league postseason race getting close as well. And September call-up's always a topic as this time of year rolls around. Give us a preview of what's coming up next month. Actually, it's really almost this month here because living in the future. But tell us about some September call-ups.
Yeah, for just a day away for you, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So I did a tool shed on this September call-up preview. I'll just blow through the guys who are more than likely to get called up. Kyle Tucker, coming off a 30-30 season at Round Rock, obviously got jumped over by Jordan Alvarez in the Astros system, but is still good enough. He's on the 40-man roster. The Astros are going for it. They're going to use whatever help they can get, even if he doesn't get that many at-bats in September. There's nothing good they can get out of keeping him at home. Brendan McKay has been dealing with a little bit of shoulder fatigue, but the Rays have said that's not really a worry. He was sent down to Durham, so technically he needs to be called back up when they deem that he's healthy. I think that's obviously going to happen. What role he plays, we'll see, because he struggled as a starter. Carter Kieboom came up briefly at the end of April when Trey Turner was hurt. Really struggled then, both offensively and defensively, has been with AAA Fresno ever since, but was a PCL postseason All-Star because of the things he showed with the bat. Again, not somebody they can afford to just leave at home. Maybe he tries to compete at that second base job in Washington, try to carve out a role for himself there, going up against Brian Dozier and Asdrubal Cabrera, obviously veterans who are not going to be around forever. But he's fighting an uphill battle there because of the way he struggled earlier in the year. Kyle Wright has had some struggles this year with the Braves, but again, maybe he takes on a bullpen role with Atlanta down the stretch as they try to lock up the NL East. Logan Allen with the Indians. He struggled a bit in the majors when he was with the Padres. He came up for one appearance with the Indians. I think it was 2 1/3 innings out of the bullpen. He made a start again with Columbus. He's only started in the minor leagues, but the Indians trying to either catch up to the Twins or hold off some other teams in the wild card. He could play a role. He's going to be fastball heavy. He's got a decent slider and a plus changeup. That could certainly work out of the bullpen as he irons out some of those issues, try to figure out how to get major league batters out at least one time through the lineup. The possibilities are much more interesting to me. Those are guys who are, I think, definitely coming up. Is Gavin Lux coming up? Lord knows he has pushed the envelope, done everything with AAA Oklahoma City that he possibly could do. The Dodgers have said it's a possibility he'll be here, but he might not be here in an active role, which I kind of hate. It feels like an internship without actually doing anything. It's like bring your top prospect to work day, which it basically means he'll be in the clubhouse, he'll be in the dugout, but he can't actually play. Bring him up, give him his chance. I think that's going to be the best for the Dodgers. Maybe it doesn't work out, and that's fine, but at least give him the opportunity that he has earned for sure. Jesus Luzardo is kind of going up against the clock. He's been trying to show that he's healthy, coming back from some injury problems this year. He started to make some starts at AAA Las Vegas. His last outing went 4 2/3 scoreless innings. He threw 84 pitches. Those were both the longest, the most innings he had thrown and the most pitches he had thrown in any outing yet this season. So I think he's proving his health. The A's going for it in that AL wild card. They're going to use whatever arms they can. They've shown that with A.J. Puck. Jesus Luzardo could be the next guy to fit that. Ian Anderson with the Braves is actually going to be really interesting. They've brought him up to AAA Gwinnett. He struggled a little bit taking his lumps there, but who hasn't as a pitcher this year at the AAA level? You'll remember last year the Braves brought up Kyle Wright, they brought up Bryce Wilson, they brought up Touki Toussaint, Colby Allard got looks. This is not a team that is afraid to give young pitchers a chance, and Anderson has shown, as others have struggled this year, that he probably is the top pitching prospect in that system. Now being one step away, does he get that chance to bring his fastball, curveball, changeup mix to the majors? Davy Garcia is going to be really interesting to watch. The Yankees have said if he comes up, it'll be in a relief role. He started to make relief appearances at AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. The stuff will definitely play. His fastball and curveball are good enough for the majors. But the Yankees bullpen is also particularly loaded. Do you bring him up into the bullpen and have him just eat innings? Does he actually get a chance in high leverage situations? It seems like he was deemed untradeable at the deadline. He's not somebody they wanted to give up. Okay, great. Now is his chance to show how good he can be at the major league level. What do the Yankees do with him? He's a possibility. I feel like it's going to happen, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. A couple to don't hold your breath on. And this will transition well into our next topic. Joe Adell, when he was called up to AAA Salt Lake, thought there might be a chance that he could play alongside Mike Trout in the season's final month. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. Luis Robert, as much as I think, as much as I want to go to bat for Gavin Lux, I would equally go to bat for Luis Robert. But unlike the Dodgers, the White Sox don't really have anything to play for in September. They're not going to burn service time on Luis Robert just to give him a chance. It seems more likely that they're going to take his year, let it be successful, and maybe play for a 2020 opening day spot, kind of like what Pete Alonso did last year, and Fernando Tatis Jr. and Chris Paddock. And Dylan Carlson with the Cardinals, he was named the Texas League MVP. He's moved up to AAA Memphis, has absolutely been killing it there, to the point where you think, like, okay, the Cardinals should maybe consider it. It doesn't seem like they're going to do that. Their outfield, they already have enough problems trying to find at-bats for everybody in their outfield. They're not going to do that with Carlson. Carlson and Adell were actually named to the Arizona Fall League this year, and because of the Arizona Fall League rule changes and schedule changes, that starts in the middle of September. Really difficult to imagine the Angels and Cardinals letting those guys go, only to be like, no, never mind, we actually want you in the majors. So that seems to slam the door shut on that. But like I said, that transitions well into our next topic.
It does. Strike three this week. The Arizona Fall League, the kind of refreshed look Arizona Fall League, new or updated logos for all six teams for the 2019 season and beyond. Give us a preview of what's coming up, rosters, coaching staffs, all that kind of stuff out there. The AFL with its usual cadre of intrigue for this season.
Yeah, no, this AFL is actually really exciting. It is every year. But I really like the way this is going to come together. I'm actually very interested to talk to players about what they think about the season moving up and just keeping that momentum going. It seemed like farm directors didn't like the layoff so much, but I wonder what the players are going to say about that, because I feel like after a long season in which everybody talks about the grind of baseball, it is kind of nice to have a break and then get rewarded with a trip to Arizona where you can show off your stuff. We'll see how players respond to that. Maybe they like it. A lot of these guys are there to make up for lost innings, lost game time, so maybe they just can't wait to play. But 20 of MLB.com's top 100 prospects are scheduled to go to the AFL according to this week's release. I'll burn through them real quick, and I'll give you some teams to watch after that. Joe Adell, who we mentioned, Royce Lewis, and Alex Kirilloff from the Twin system. Forrest Whitley, who's really struggled this year in the Astros system, but is building back up. He's going back to the AFL for a second time. Joey Bart, Jared Kelnick, who we've already mentioned, with Arkansas in the Mariners system, Alec Boehm, Nolan Jones, Nico Horner, who was a standout in last year's AFL, he's going back as well. Dylan Carlson, we already mentioned. Julio Rodriguez getting the chance to play next to Kelnick on a Peoria roster. Elliot Ramos, O'Neal Cruz, Daniel Lynch, Luis Garcia of the Washington Nationals system, Miguel Amaya, Andres Jimenez, Jonathan India, Shane Boz, and Seth Beer, now of the D-backs, formerly of the Astros. So 20, that's a solid list, obviously. There are 5 guys of the top 20, them being Adell, Lewis, Kirilloff, Whitley, and Bart. Some of the teams that I'm looking forward to, there are actually 4 with 4 top 100 prospects each. They're Mesa, Salt River, Peoria, and Scottsdale. I know teams change every year, and you're not necessarily going to be a fan of, hey, I'm a big Scottsdale Scorpions fan, unless you're a fan of the new logos, which we can talk about later. But that Mesa team, I think, is going to be really interesting. Horner coming back, Adell trying to show hey, maybe it was a mistake to not bring me up to the majors. Miguel Amaya has been super young everywhere he plays. How is he going to work with a new pitching staff? That'll be really interesting. And Nolan Jones trying to take his approach, which is usually walk heavy and strikeout heavy, but also really gap heavy, to the next level and getting challenged against some really good hitters or pitchers rather. Excuse me. Salt River will be good because it's got that Lewis and Kirilloff combination. Those guys seem to be paired up wherever they go. They're going to continue that this fall with the Rafters, but also Shane Boz, who I had a tool shed on a couple weeks ago, has really started to make gains again in the Rays system. Had fallen back a little bit with the Pirates, then got traded in last year's Chris Archer deal. The Rays have said, hey, we really like your fastball. Just go fastball heavy for now. What happens when he brings that against guys who have been in AAA, who have been in AA? That'll be really interesting. And Seth Beer trying to make a better impression with the D-backs. His production has dropped off a little bit since he moved from the Astros at the deadline, but no doubt his bat is going to play, and I think he has a real chance to be one of the standouts with the bat there. Peoria is going to be fascinating to me as well, just to touch on them real quick. Because of Whitley, like we said, this is somebody who really has something to prove again. He's not only trying to make up for lost innings because of shoulder fatigue, but he really struggled during his time at AAA. He started to find himself again at AA. Now going up against top talent again, what can he do with that, and how will the stuff play? And then just getting the chance to see Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez in the same outfield. Those guys started out together at West Virginia this year. Rodriguez got hurt. Kelenic eventually moved up to Modesto. Now he's at Arkansas. Rodriguez is now at Modesto and has been tearing the cover off the ball there. How can he carry that momentum with him? What will it be like for Kelenic? Can he continue to stand out against advanced competition? This is his first full season. This is the first full season for both of these guys. Rodriguez jumped straight from the DSL. What can they do to add even more juice to the Mariners system that's obviously on the up and up? So we'll dig into more of these as the AFL season comes up closer, but these are just some kind of snap judgments right now. And it's going to be very close. The AFL season starts the day after the AAA National Championship, which is coming much sooner than you think.
That is pretty crazy. And that will do it for 3 strikes on this week's episode of The Show Before the Show.
Joining us this week on the Minor League Baseball podcast, The Show Before the Show, coming to you live from Woodbridge, Virginia, where apparently there's an ambulance or something going on. We've got real on-the-scenes coverage, it sounds like.
A fire truck has just gone by, but
Okay.
Hopefully the noise dies down, and hopefully the fire can be put out safely and quickly.
Yeah, if I was to prioritize that, I would say hopefully they can take care of whatever they need to take care of, and then we'll take care of this silly podcast after that. But Ben, how are you? You're on the road now. You just visited the Potomac Nationals. How are things going?
Yeah, going pretty well. I'm in a parking lot of a Country Inn and Suites in Woodbridge, Virginia, off the Prince William Parkway. It is that quintessential American landscape, meaning that all I can see in every direction are parking lots, office parks, and chain stores. There's a Bank of America here, a Chipotle here, a Smoky Bones barbecue across the street. This is America.
They are the Nationals, right? They should be something like that. I don't know. Fill in your own joke there. But it's an interesting time for you to have visited the Peanuts. You were there for their game last night, which was the last at Fitzner Stadium. I should say Northwest Federal Fitzner Stadium. One of the I don't know what adjective I would want to use on that. How would you describe the Fitz and everything that's gone into trying to leave it, and now that it's finally coming up that they're moving to Fredericksburg next year? Just take us through the scene last night and what it was like to be there the last night there.
Yeah, well, Fitzner Stadium, it's been around for, I believe, since 1984. And, it never got old enough to be historic, but for a long time, it wasn't new enough to feel anything but old, if that makes sense. I mean, I think the adjective euphemism we've used for years with these kind of parts is venerable, meaning they stick around. And this place does have its charm. Fitzner Stadium, it's in a weird location. I mean, obviously this whole general area, people quantify distances and travel time a lot of the time through Route 95. But this ballpark is not, it's still a ways away from 95. It's in a government office park. So it's a kind of strange location. And, it's been described, and I think accurately so, as kind of a glorified high school field. I mean, you just have a small grandstand, a bank of bleachers on each side down first and third base. A kind of dingy, narrow, concourse, with no view of the field, and an external concourse. It is an old park, and it's operationally very difficult, and there have been plans in the works, in one form or another, to get out of there for the better part of a decade. I've covered it through the years. I talked to the team's owner, Art Silber, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when the plan was to stay in Prince William County near Woodbridge, where they are now, but that fell through. Now they're going to Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is not too far away, but again, with the traffic in this area, when you move maybe 45 minutes away or 35, 40 miles away, it seems prohibitive. So you do have some angry fans who, even though this isn't a relocation where they're going to, a whole nother region of the country, there are some fans who feel alienated. But I think big picture, it's very understandable why this ballpark is leaving the minor league landscape. And of course, it comes with an asterisk. One, as we talk right now, Potomac is about 2 games back in the playoff race, probably not going to make it, but they could make the playoffs. There could be playoff baseball at Pfitzner. And construction on the new ballpark is underway. But it got kind of a late start, and, we've seen it happen in recent years, whether it's, Hartford, Biloxi, El Paso. We've seen some late openings of new ballparks. So they could also maybe return to Pfitzner next year to at least start the season. That's TBD. But for all intents and purposes, I came here to, say goodbye to a venerable facility.
Yeah, no, venerable is a great way of putting that. And what was the atmosphere like? I know you said that, people around there, some of them might not be happy that they're going to Fredericksburg, but at least it is staying generally in the area. Do people have an attachment to that stadium? I mean, is it like closing a big stadium? I know they gave out dirt to the first 750 fans just so they can cling to something, but what was the fan reaction last night, knowing that might be the last time they see the Fitz?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some emotion. I mean, I think the team, in this kind of transitional year, they, kind of, I don't want to say one foot out the door, but, they cut back on season ticket perks and, condensed their marketing budget and, took away things like Thirsty Thursday and the mascot, and even the mascot wasn't there. I think they're really kind of stockpiling their resources for the new stadium. So I think the whole year for a lot of fans has been like, well, I guess that's the end of this. I can't say it culminated in some grand event yesterday, but of course, when you have a ballpark, a professional ballpark for over 3 decades, there are going to be a lot of people, and generationally speaking, a lot of people, who went there as kids, who brought their own kids there, who grew up there, who went there as kids, teens, adults, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of people with a lot of memories. And there was a pretty decent crowd last night. When I was there for the penultimate game on Wednesday, that was a pretty dead atmosphere. But yesterday, I think a lot of people came out. Maybe some of them were enticed by the dirt. I thought that was a creative and kind of fun thing the team did. I was talking to the general manager, Brian Holland, and he said, before our interns all left, and a lot of them go back to college, he's like, the final thing we did was set up an assembly line and bag some dirt so we could give some dirt away on the final game of the season. And that's quintessential minor league baseball for you. But I talked to quite a few fans over the last 2 games, and especially yesterday, who obviously had a lot of emotion, whether they're members of the booster club. I talked to a father-daughter duo. The daughter's now 14, and she's been going there since she was 4. That kind of thing. Groups of friends who've been there through the years. 5 years ago, I wrote a story about Ken's Place, a kind of rowdy group of older gentlemen who always went to the game, and while they're not as intact as they used to be, things like that. When you're home for 70 games a year over 3 decades, that's a lot of memories, and it doesn't really matter, how dumpy the ballpark is or whatever. That's a receptacle for a lot of memories, and it meant a lot to a lot of people, and it was cool to say goodbye to that, even if the game itself didn't have a lot of stuff around it that was saying explicitly this is the end.
Yeah, and speaking of memories, I was going to ask, because you have been to Potomac before, obviously, when you went on your tour of every minor league ballpark. You're revisiting it again now. How are you going to remember the Fitz going forward? I know it might be a little too close now, but when you look back on your time and your visits there, what will be your most memorable moments or parts of it, going forward?
I mean, I think just big picture that, yeah, it is kind of a dump. Yes, you go there and you say, like, oof, I can't believe this place is still hosting minor league baseball. But I like places like that because I think it brings out, more hardcore fans, so then you have more personality around the fan base. I really did enjoy in 2015, I believe, talking to those guys I mentioned, Ken's Place, the leader of that group, Dusty Rhodes was a real character. I'll always remember those guys and, the sort of energy they brought to the park with their catchphrase of hubba hubba. And, the team, not something I experienced directly a lot, but, I'll be writing about this. The team, I think, being one of the so-called have-nots on the minor league landscape, they cut it back a little this year, but they did a great job with, creative promos and, all the half-man, half-beast, bobbleheads they did through the years, like, the Bryce Harper gobblehead where he was a turkey, and they celebrated Fitzgiving and, tied into a Thanksgiving thing, the Roger Bernardina, half shark, half man, Anthony Rendon, Anthony, and he was like half man, half ant. That sort of thing, I always enjoyed covering Potomac, whether I was there or not, for the creative spirit they brought to a, far less than ideal operating situation. And I was talking to again, Brian Holland, the team's general manager, and he said, things are going to be different in a new ballpark, but I think we have to retain that spirit. And, I certainly hope they do. But this is the kind of place to go, for a pretty low cost, get some bleacher seats. You might bake in the sun for a little bit, but if you want to be around real baseball fans, and this is a Washington Nationals affiliate playing in Washington Nationals territory, you see a lot of, big names come through. So if this is a great environment, for being a fan of a parent club and really getting to know the guys, on their way to the major leagues. And even when I was there on Wednesday, Ryan Zimmerman was rehabbing. It was kind of surreal to see this veteran major leaguer in this quiet old ballpark, Class A advanced on a Wednesday night. There he is at first base. And I think those are the kind of memories that are, you really hold on to, especially when the place isn't there anymore.
Well, speaking of old ballparks, your next stop, you're about to get in the car, drive 2 hours to Hagerstown, home of the Suns, to see Municipal Stadium, which opened, I believe, in 1930. Still going strong, according to the website. They are under lease to play there until the 2021 season, and that could be extended. We all know that. What are you looking forward to about this trip to go see the Suns?
Well, yeah, seeing an old stadium in a challenging environment. It's far older than Potomac, but I think there's a lot of similarities there, in that it's a ballpark that I think there's been efforts to replace it for a long time, and understandably so. In fact, one of the things that fell through in Hagerstown in terms of them relocating was Fredericksburg. They got pretty far down the line with a new park in Fredericksburg, and it fell through, and that's where Potomac ended up going. So I think there are some similarities there. This is very much a no-frills facility, and I think working minor league baseball has so many different landscapes, but if you're working for a team like the Hagerstown Suns, you're going to face a lot of challenges just in terms of the layout of the space, the room you have to move, how old the ballpark is, a smaller market. I like those situations because, again, it brings out the diehards and it kind of brings out some creativity in the staff to make the best of a less than ideal situation. So I'm looking forward to seeing that again. I haven't been there since 2011, end of the season in 2011. So that's 8 years. So I'm just looking to refresh my own memories and, hopefully meet some interesting people, hopefully find some eccentric people, maybe do some fan profiles. We'll see how it goes, but I'm definitely looking forward to being there again and closing out my season travels in Hagerstown, Maryland, the home of the Suns.
I'm sure we'll talk about that more next week after you have visited them, and going to be interested to see how a stadium that opened in 1930 is still operating in 2019. Ben, before we let you go, you had a fun story this week on the AAA Iowa Cubs leaning into politics. Usually, if you're on Twitter long enough, people try to tell you to stick to sports and get out of politics. Iowa leaning into it in an almost non-political manner, if that makes sense. They are becoming the Iowa caucuses, celebrating the fact that they are the first state to take on, presidential primaries or caucuses. For one night, they will become the caucuses. They're not dressed as an elephant. They're not dressed as a donkey or anything like that. Just a happy state of Iowa, red, white, and blue cap and uniform. What can you tell us about how that idea has come together?
Yeah, the Iowa Cubs, are a team that as their name would kind of make clear, are a more conservative team as regards their approach to promotions. This is the first year they've done any sort of alternate identities. They took part in the Copa program and did the suited up as the Demonios, which is a play on demons, which is itself a play on Des Moines. But the Demons were a team in Des Moines history decades ago, and so they put their Copa identity around that, Copa de la Division, and so Caucasus now is the first time they've done a standalone identity. And like you said, politics is an incredibly dicey subject, especially when you're an entity like a sports team who's trying to stay everything down the middle, and the Cubs are definitely trying to stay down the middle with this. Just saying we're celebrating Iowa's first in the nation role, in terms of voting, or their first in the nation status, in terms of the fact that the caucuses take part, they kick off the primary season and are therefore, have outsized importance in the electoral process. The team is celebrating that. The logo is an anthropomorphic state of Iowa, holding up a red, white, and blue foam finger that says first on it. The logos were designed by Studio Simon, Dan Simon of Studio Simon, who's obviously done a lot of great work in the minor league baseball realm for a lot of years. He was actually the guy who did the New Hampshire primaries identity, which was going to, as we've talked about on this podcast before, was the original identity of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. They originally said they were going to be the primaries, and then after a lot of outcry, and this was a different era of minor league baseball, when negative publicity regarding team names was not embraced, as it is now. So they changed it. But it's kind of cool that Dan Simon, well over a decade later, he did the primaries and now he's doing the caucuses. And I think it's a really cool look. I think it's good to celebrate, no matter where you stand politically. Obviously, it's extremely dicey, but I do think we should celebrate democracy, voting, encourage people to vote. The team's going to have people from the Iowa Secretary of State's office out at the ballpark, or they did. Or wait, when's this promo? I'm losing track of the days. It's tonight. They will. They will have people from the Iowa Secretary of State's office, registering people or having them update their information, or just, sharing information about the caucus process, because it is different than a primary. And I don't know, even myself, all the specifics of, what differentiates a caucus from a primary, but it is like a caucus, meaning a group. You have to get, you have to attend an event and go through more of a process with a caucus. And I wish I knew more about it. And I wish I was at the game tonight and I could learn about it from the Iowa Secretary of State's office. And that, that would be a good experience to have at a minor league baseball game. But it's a cool identity. And as a little aside, Eddie Vedder had a flight delayed in Des Moines. He was at a gun control symposium in Des Moines. His flight got delayed, so he stopped by Principal Park and bought some caucuses gear. So there you have it.
And I think, based on my political science minor, if I can remember my college days, caucuses are mostly, like you said, gatherings. They're people getting together, and sometimes they're in people's homes, sometimes they're in high school gyms, high school auditoriums, wherever you can get everybody together in your town. And sometimes it's like, okay, everybody who supports candidate A, get in this corner. Everybody who supports candidate B gets in this corner. People are elected to speak on behalf of the candidates and all that kind of stuff. It's much more high participation than just getting in and filling in a bubble and getting a sticker, which I can kind of appreciate. And I'll be interested to see how they kind of lean into that at the ballpark, whether they have people get up and move around to support, I don't know, the first baseman or the third baseman or something like that. I think that there's a lot of fun participation ways to celebrate this. But we'll be looking for that tonight. By the time you guys hear this, check out to see how Iowa Caucuses night went. Follow Ben on Twitter to see how his trip to Hagerstown went, and look out for all the content coming from these trips to Potomac and Hagerstown. He's at Ben's Biz on Twitter, or you can follow his stuff online at milb.com/Ben'sBiz. Ben, safe travels to Hagerstown. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here in New York next week.
Yeah, good talking to you, Sam. And I'm sorry that you're neither on my left or right. You were in another state, and we were talking to the phone lines. But, I feel like you're on all sides of me.
That's how this works, yes. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Final segment of this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. MILB.TV is your home for the minor league baseball playoffs. And with that, we're not going to pick games because everything is big during the minor league playoffs. So get your MILB.TV subscription for the final couple of weeks of the 2019 minor league baseball campaign, as crazy as that is. And really, that's just about going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for taking the lead on everything, man. I guess, get used to it for the next few weeks.
No, it's all right. This week was a crazy week all around. You flew literally across the globe. I won't even say halfway across the globe, literally across the globe. There were a lot of postseason all-star stuff. There's a lot of season wrap-up stuff going on this week. As you guys heard from Ben, he's on the road this week, so a lot going on. But the podcast is going to keep trucking on like we always have. Thank you for your patience in waiting for it to come out this week. And, we'll be excited to dive into actual playoff baseball next time.
And that'll do it. He's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Maun. We'll talk to you next week.